Welcome, 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 everyone. Welcome to another edition of Remixing Politics and Culture with me, your host, Pam. I am a public relations and marketing professional who has a passion for social justice, civil rights, voter advocacy, and culture. Tonight, we have as our special guest the Charles Hamilton Houston Endowed Chair, Professor of Law at North Carolina Central University, Professor Irving Joyner returns. He returns to us. He is the leading national expert on civil rights law and lectures regularly about legal education, civil rights, political empowerment programs. Welcome back, Professor Joyner.
Well, it's great to be here. Thank you so very much for this invitation.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know that we um, cannot talk about the insurrection without having you here. Absolutely can't do that. So, the last time we spoke about specifically about the January 6th insurrection, we discussed paperwork literally being stuffed into the toilets of the White House, causing plumbing backups. And and we also touched on about at another conversation that we had when we talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson and the insurrection, the January 6th proceedings. We talked about the discovery of Jenny Thomas's text messages to Mark Meadows. Now, after 5 hearings, we've heard some real bombshells. I mean, we have heard them all, and just want to get your take on what's going on with that.
Well, at the outset, let me say that the House Select Committee
Hmm.
has done an outstanding job
Hmm.
of investigating the origin and the execution of the insurrection or the effort to stop the steal, as it has been titled by some on the insurrectionist side. So I just want to just commend them for what it is that they're doing. The hearings thus far
Hmm.
have produced evidence that is simply chilling
Hmm.
as
Yes.
to where we are in this country and the need for us to be laser focused on protecting this democracy because there is every effort underfoot now, and every effort was underfoot then to destroy the democracy that we have been promised and that we have envisioned
Hmm.
this country to be. And quite frankly, it was an attempt to take over
Yes.
this country by domestic terrorists led by the former president of this country, based on the evidence
Hmm.
that the House Select Committee has presented to us thus far.
I, do you think Merrick Garland is paying attention? I notice all the reporters are asking him that all the time now. So, what do you think?
Well, I think that he is, and that's evidenced by the fact that the Justice Department has issued subpoenas. They have conducted raids on homes of individuals who are suspected to be involved in this. So it seems that they've been galvanized, that they are moving forward.
Hmm.
Uh, After what the House Select Committee has been able to produce.
Hmm.
It would just be outlandish for Merrick Garland not to move the Justice Department to investigate further
Hmm.
and to bring this matter before a grand jury
Right.
to make a determination if probable cause exists to bring charges. I would think that from what has been presented, that there is more than sufficient evidence that would demand that there are prosecutions in these cases, and this prosecution that started based on conduct that occurred before the election, during the election, after the election, and then efforts to keep or prevent the peaceful transfer of power to exist, and then obviously the insurrection itself that
Right.
occurred on January 6th.
One of the things that really kind of confused me, and this is just a side note before we get into some things. The gentleman, I can see his face, I can't think of his name, who's the chair of the House Select Committee. Someone asked him about, it seemed like there was a conflict between the evidence that they were gathering and versus whether they were going to turn it over to the DOJ. Do you know what I'm talking about, Professor Joyner?
You're talking about Benny Thompson, who was the congressional representative from Mississippi,
Right.
who is leading the House Select panel. And it would seem that from what I'm able to gather, that they had access to evidentiary sources that the Justice Department did not have, or
Okay.
information about criminal conduct that the Justice Department did not have. Whatever the case is, the evidence has been unearthed. It
Right.
has been presented. It is, as they say, clear and cogent that these things occurred. And this evidence is based on reports from members of the Trump administration,
Right.
people who were in high places, who were doing high things. And but for most of them, this insurrection would have succeeded. The Stop the Steal movement would have been successful.
Yeah.
But for the intervention of these high-ranking officials who felt that they had a duty, and they do, to the Constitution, to which they took an oath to protect and defend. So these are not theories that's being promoted. This is cash cold evidence
Right.
that even the blind can see. And it leads you to a irrevocable conclusion that criminal conduct was afoot.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Professor Joyner. I had in my notes that clearly the January 6th insurrection was planned because it wasn't just a ragtag group of Trump loyalists that who knew how to navigate, who could possibly navigate the Capitol. And I have a little film here that from the wonderful Lincoln Project that I want to share with you and the audience. Bear with me one second as I pull it up. Okay.
It has begun here at the Washington Monument, Washington, D.C.
Check out my flag I made, guys. See it? There you go, baby. That's for a certain person.
That's right. That's for somebody special. Somebody special. There's no escape, Pelosi, Schumer, Nadler. We're coming for you. Even you, AOC, we're coming to take you out.
I love giving tours of the Capitol to constituents when they come.
This security footage showing what they say is a tour of approximately 10 individuals led by Matt Loudermilk to areas in office buildings, as well as the entrances to tunnels leading to the U.S. Capitol.
How about that, Pelosi? Might as well make yourself another appointment. When I get done with you, you're going to need a shine up on top of that bald head.
Okay. Okay. So Loudermilk, Representative Loudermilk led essentially a reconnaissance tour. Okay. We know that. And we also have heard of other people that were leading tours as well. The Capitol was shut down for tours during that time. We were in the midst of COVID and all of that. And why would they be taking a tour? Why would he be taking pictures of staircases and tunnels and all of that?
Yeah, well, and again, I commend the House Select Committee for gathering all of this footage, and I don't know why they filmed it as they were engaged in these activities,
Mhm.
but the information speaks for itself.
Right.
It is very clear that not only did the former president engage in this effort to cause this insurrection, but he was aided at every court by elected officials, people who are elected to Congress, people who were appointed to specific positions, all who swore an oath to
Right.
protect and defend the United States. But here they are now engaging in and not apologizing for it at all, in an effort to overthrow the peaceful transition of power in the United States. And it's not just in Washington. You're looking at state capitals all over the country, whether you're talking about Arizona, Pennsylvania, Georgia, and a number of other states that they were bringing in these loyalists to Donald Trump who knew that they were engaging in conduct that was illegal and that it had no other aim but to thwart the peaceful surrender of power in this country. And had it been us out there,
Please.
we wouldn't even be discussing it right now. We wouldn't have been able to crash into the Capitol building. We would have been shot down.
Exactly. And then the other thing is, if you just could imagine if this was Obama's administration, please, what I heard before we before we started the show was a comment that the goal of the committee is not to charge Trump. And it just not to convict him or something like that. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, well, and I understand that,
Unless it's a PR spin or something. I don't know what it is, but I heard that before we started the show this evening.
Yeah, and Congress's role is not to be the prosecutor. The Department of Justice, that's the prosecutorial arm of the government. But what the Congress is doing through its House Select Committee is to unearth and present this evidence such that the Department of Justice has no option but to pursue criminal charges. And if they don't, then we should be pushing for the impeachment or removal of Merrick Garland for dereliction of his duty as the head prosecutor here, because this evidence is very strong and it is not disputed in any sense of the word.
Exactly. I want to read one of the comments we received. It says from Jenny Jones, this was very orchestrated. You needed an inside man to share weak points and such. Also sounds like some people were promised pardons in advance if it went south. Yes, there were several. That was on this fifth committee meeting that came up about the pardons. That came up about the pardons for sure. Absolutely. And I again on my notes I have here the fallout. I tell you, the thing that just took my breath away in all of the testimony was how people's lives were forever changed by Donald Trump and Rudy Giuliani's vicious lies, such as Shay Moss and her mom, Lady Ruby. And even their Shay Moss's grandmother, Lady Ruby's grandmother, the abuse that they have taken from people ordering pizzas to their houses with huge bills and all of this kind of stuff, demanding payment and what have you. I have another film here on Lady Ruby, also done by the Lincoln Project, that is just great. I just picked the one from Lady Ruby because what she says is so profound. 1 second. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. All right.
I could have never imagined the events that followed the presidential election 2020. I've lost my name and I've lost my reputation. I've lost my sense of security, all because a group of people, starting with number 45 and his ally, Rudy Giuliani, decided to scapegoat me and my daughter, Shay, to push their own lies about how the presidential election was stolen.
We had at least 18,000, that's on tape. We had them counted very painstakingly, 18,000 voters having to do with Ruby Freeman. She's a vote scammer, a professional vote scammer and hustler.
Around the week of January 6th, the FBI informed me that I needed to leave my home for safety. I can't believe this person has caused this much damage to me and my family, to have to leave my home, that I've lived there for 21 years. The president of the United States is supposed to represent every American, not to target one, but he targeted me, Lady Ruby, a small business owner, a mother, a proud American citizen who stand up to help Fulton County run an election in the middle of the pandemic.
So it is, Professor Joyner. So let's back up a little bit. What should happen to Loudermilk for doing the reconnaissance tour? And then we're going to get to what should happen to benefit Lady Ruby and her daughter Shay and the grandmother for their harassment. There has to be some justice in there for everybody.
Yeah. Well, there's a thing in the law called conspiracy, aiding and abetting. And to the extent that the representative was a part of this effort to instigate what occurred on January the 6th, then he is a conspirator, an active conspirator. In addition to that, his involvement in helping to produce the surveillance of the building that was going to be utilized the next day makes him a aider and abetter. He was a participant to that extent, and the fact that he was not personally pushing in does not exonerate him from his criminal culpability in this case, because he got the ball rolling, and he kept the ball rolling by contributing the assistance that he provided to those people who were going to be coming back on January the 6th. Now, as to Shay Moss and her mother, Lady Ruby, I mean, we have to stand up and applaud them. We have to salute them for all that they did. And I would hope that there are people who watch them who will take from them the importance of their being at the polls in coming elections to ensure that the elections are run in a fair and unbiased manner. But
Mhm.
as to the two of them, they are deserving of the Medal of Freedom from President Biden. At a minimum, they are entitled to that. And I think that African Americans and others from around the country need to send tokens of gratitude to
Mhm.
them, bring them to their church and applaud them and take them
Mhm.
into the civic clubs and sororities and fraternities and pat them on the back for standing up for what it was that they had sworn themselves to do. They had no idea when they started working in this campaign that
Mhm.
it was going to come to this. Uh,
No.
they were faithful in doing what it was that they took an oath to do. And so an ordinary feat created an extraordinary result with respect to the efforts that they were engaged in. And they should be saluted and patted on the back. We need to have some bronze statues of them all over Georgia starting next week to show people what strong African American women can do in the face of adversity.
I think they need some type of financial compensation, because one of the things that, if you caught what Lady Ruby said, she said that the FBI came to her around the week of January 6th and told her it was unsafe for her to stay in her home. And
Yes.
so she had, who can just up and leave their home?
Yep. 2
And
months.
right. And she was gone for 2 months. And what really bothers me about that is that if they told her to leave her home, then they knew that there was going to be violence at the Capitol.
Well, they
They,
knew that.
they had to know.
Yeah. Well,
But
there had been instances of violence already. You know, at in Michigan, you
yeah,
had the efforts to intimidate the governor, and in other
they
parts of
killed,
the
kidnap, and kill the governor. I
yes,
mean,
yeah,
unreal. And she's a white woman.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's what blew me away.
Yeah. So these were ongoing efforts, and the obviously the FBI were aware of these efforts, and they heard. I mean, they were following social media, listening to the chatter from these various groups, which were very engaged in this effort to support the return of the former president to office, even though he had become a loser. He was a winner in their eyes, and so they were going to use force and did, and they should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Yeah. And can Shay Moss and Lady Ruby and the grandmother sue?
I think so. I think so. That there is certainly, it would seem to me, a legal basis if you can draw in the connections between what happened to them and those individuals that you can identify that
Mhm.
participated in that campaign. Donald Trump obviously was engaged in that because he called her out on
Yeah.
national, on
He
at
called her
national
a
television
scammer and everything else, a professional scammer and all that stuff. Just horrible.
when he was really identifying himself. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah, it was.
Nobody's better at it than him.
That's right. It was, I mean, my grandmother used to call it the pot calling the kettle
Kettle
black.
black. That's right. That's right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So the next big chunk of this that just blows my mind too much is this whole Jenny Thomas and Clarence and Justice Thomas. I remember soon after the everything, people were pointing fingers and wondering, how did these people come in mass on buses to the Capitol? And the word was on Twitter that Jenny Thomas was one of those people who paid for the buses. And then some PR magic happened, and then that kind of went away. You didn't hear that chatter anymore. It got corrected. But then you started learning more and more about her advocacy. And she's something else. We have never heard from any other Supreme Court justice wife, spouse, or anything ever.
Yeah.
You know, we don't even know their names.
You're right. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And I'm looking for the House Select Committee to conduct their investigation of Jenny Thomas to see what her involvement was. I mean, clearly, there are emails that she sent to Mark Meadows that painted her in a leadership role in what occurred. There are emails to other officials which confirms her involvement. And the question is, what is the connection between what she was doing and her husband, who is on the Supreme Court with a grudge, an acknowledged grudge against these so-called liberal groups and organizations, and particularly efforts to protect and defend the African American community and the African American interest in this country. He is the leading legal antagonist for us. And in every situation where there is some legal effort to undermine the protections and defenses for African Americans and to extend the rights that we are entitled to, he is always on the other side. And we need to call him out. But I think
something else.
There has to be a connection between he and his wife. And there's so many things that I'm really upset about with respect to him, as now he is pushing for the Supreme Court to review some decisions after this abortion.
We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that after this.
That would challenge his right to marry a white woman in the first place.
Well, I assume, and when we get to that, I don't think he's going to go for that. He'll go for everything but around that. Jenny Jones says defamation of character, if nothing else, and I think he's referring to Shay Moss and Lady Ruby about that they could file for that. But see, that would be against Trump for what he said. But you know how Trump don't pay nobody no way. So, Eric Curry says, does it really matter if she's interested in speaking to the January 6th committee if her husband isn't reprimanded?
Well, I think there needs to be reprimands for all of them. And her husband is just in the crosshairs right now, and should be his connection to all of this should be thoroughly investigated, because, I mean, technically, there is a distinction to be made between what she does and what her husband does, because they are separate individuals, and you have to draw a connection between his conduct and her actions in order for them to be acting in concert. Now, we may believe that they were, and common sense would suggest that they were, but common sense doesn't prevail in court. But Eric Curry, you on the money that he needs to be reprimanded.
Now, and Eric, Jenny Jones says, Eric Curry, good point. Listen, Professor Joyner, and I don't know why I didn't write that man's name down. You know, when you think your brain is so good and you can remember everything, the guy, the Trump's lawyer, who was Justice Thomas's clerk, he got up on the dais the day of January 6th talking all big and bad and ramping up the crowd. What is his name? He's out of California. He even put up a case talking about our girl, our vice president wasn't even from America. She wasn't American. He's just a real jerk. At any rate, he and Jenny are close. He and Jenny are best pals, are close. He was Justice Thomas's law clerk, and
Yeah.
all this writing that I put down in my notes, and I didn't write his name. I didn't write his name, but somebody in the chat, if you can think of it, let me know. At any rate, he's definitely culpable in all of that too. I've got the last little video I want to share with you. It's about compromise.
Okay.
Justice Clarence Thomas is compromised. On January 19th, 2022, Thomas was the only Supreme Court justice willing to help Trump and his allies hide from justice over the January 6th insurrection. Thomas did not hide that he was willing to grant Trump's request for secrecy, but it wasn't just to protect Trump and his conspirators. It was to protect his wife, Ginny Thomas. A radical right-wing activist, Ginny Thomas has openly applauded rebellion in the past.
I think people are rebelling and there's a big tidal wave coming. I think the Democrats are pretty worried about what's coming.
And the lead up to January 6th was no different. Ginny Thomas used her direct line to Trump's White House to push for the overturning of a free and fair election, even attending the rally that would ultimately end in an attack on the U.S. Capitol. None of this would be known if Justice Thomas had gotten his way. The January 6th Commission can't do their job if one of the most powerful men in the country is using his seat to protect his best friend. Clarence Thomas must recuse himself because he took an oath to protect the Constitution, not his wife.
Well,
Hello, Discover Card here to explain our cashback match. We match all of the cashback you earn at the end of your first year automatically. It's that simple. Discover, exceptionally common.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Technology. So what do you think about that? That's what I love about the Lincoln Project. They just put all the little things together in one little summary. And I thought it would be great to help tell this whole story. So, because everybody aren't ingesting all this media like I am all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought it would really help.
Well, the available evidence that's been presented publicly thus far by the House Select Committee and others certainly seem to support this view that you just presented. The connection between, obviously, Ginny Thomas was intimately involved in efforts with Mark Meadows, who was at the top, who was in lockstep with Donald Trump going through all of this. And you indicated, and just because you asked, I forgot his name as well, but the architect of this crazy scheme to undermine the certification of the ballots was Ace Coon Boone with Jenny Thomas, and did in fact work with Clarence Thomas.
He was his clerk.
Yes, and so the pieces are there. And it's a matter now of being able to tie those pieces together such that you can prove that in court. And reprimand is probably too soft of a word for Thomas at this point. He needs to resign, or be impeached. But obviously, politically, that is not going to occur. But we know. And we can certainly see that the sheets have been pulled off him.
Jenny, you couldn't see the video? I thought I shared it. It showed that I shared it. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's something with because he's looking at us from LinkedIn, but it should have. You saw the video, didn't you, Professor Joyner?
I
No.
did. I
Okay.
did.
Okay. Well, I'll find out. Imani Christina says Trump caused intentional infliction of emotional distress. The mother and daughter can state as well as prove this. Yeah, the whole world saw that. Absolutely, absolutely. Let's see. And I want to get on to one other thing about with that Clarence Thomas situation. Is it true? So, in what I was listening to about the Supreme Court rules, they have to recuse themselves. They have to act. They act like it's almost like they're God. Like, oh well, I think I can handle it, so I just do what I want to do. And if that's the case, clearly we need to put some limits, maybe even term limits, and some new rules in place for Supreme Court justices.
Well, as you stated, there are no rules which would require them to recuse themselves. That's left to the individuals to make it based on their read of their temperament in the case, and obviously it does not work here. And the problem here is that you're dealing with an agency of government, the third prong of our government, and those individuals at the top, they make the rules for everyone else, but they don't make similar rules for themselves. And unless there is some political muscle within the Congress that can create rules and regulations that govern them, and that's an issue that will come up because the judicial branch of government is self-controlling and self-executing within the powers granted to them by the Constitution. And so you're dealing with this notion of separation of powers between what the Congress can do to compel members of the judiciary. But one of the things that is an open question now is whether to expand the number of justices on the U.S. Supreme Court, which is a viable option, and Congress can do that. But they don't have the political will and the political muscle at this point to accomplish that goal.
Right. What all I want right now is to galvanize our people to vote. And then I'm gonna really, because if we don't vote, game over. Game over. If we do not vote, game over. Let's see here. Jenny said, if my spouse has a lifetime appointment, then I darn near have more power than the president. That's true. That's true. Because that guy, that if somebody could look it up for me, he is Trump's attorney, and he is from California. He ran unsuccessfully for attorney general and all of that. He might have even ran unsuccessfully for attorney general of the state of California with our girl Kamala Harris. I'm not sure. I can't think of his name, but he is key because they each slipped little bits of information saying, well, I am of the understanding that X, Y, and Z is going to happen. And they would only know it because of Jenny. Yeah. Because of Jenny Thomas and Clarence.
And then sought a pardon, which he did not get.
He didn't get. That's right. They were throwing him under the bus. I think Trump was throwing that guy under the bus along with somebody else.
Well, Trump will throw anybody under the bus, and those people under the bus are nutty enough that they will lay there and let the wheels roll over them.
Right. Regina Forte says, why isn't Jenny Thomas being investigated for her participation on January 6th? What's the holdup?
She is. She is. She has already been subpoenaed by the House Select Committee, and they have a lot of emails and other information about her activities, her advocacy, her connection with the January 6th insurrection, those activities leading up to that. So she is the subject of investigation. Now it's just a matter of us waiting to see what the House Select Committee will turn up. And yes, John Eastman.
John Eastman, that's our man. I
Yes.
should have. I thought I would remember his name, but in the course of doing this, you'd forget about it. Yeah. So she has. So Professor Joyner, they subpoenaed her already.
Yes, yes,
Oh,
they subpoenaed her, and in a cocky type move, she said that she was willing to go, and she was just happy to go in and talk to them. And so I hope that she follows up on that. I'm sure that her judicial wise husband will advise her to take the fifth, as John Eastman did when he was called before the committee. But I certainly want to press the House Select Committee to bring her in and unclothe her in front of everybody.
Okay, let's see. Okay, Jenny, thanks so much for getting that answer for me. Okay. And Alicia Baker Rogers, it is voting in all elections. Absolutely. You got to vote the whole down ballot. You have to vote. You have to vote. I cannot stress this enough. You have to vote in every election. Let's see. Imani Christina says, what must we do in order to establish term limits? McConnell and Graham have yielded too much power for far too long. But really, McConnell, McConnell drives me insane. He just,
well, we have to make this point again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Those persons who have been elected for all of these positions, they are in positions of power, and everything that is happening emanates from them. And if we aren't in a position to replace them, whether we're talking about at the congressional level and at the state level. I mean, here in North Carolina, we need to be concerned about the North Carolina Supreme Court and who gets elected there. Because when we talk about woman's right to choose, that is going to be an issue that will come before them. We need to look at the membership of the North Carolina General Assembly, because they are going to be in a position to change the law or alter the law as it relates to protection for the rights of women to choose. And if you don't like what they are doing and what they are going to do, and they have advertised already what it is that they are going to do, then we have to accept the blame for our omission. But there are too many of us that refuse to get involved, and then we want to complain about it once the hammer begins to fall on our neck. So now is the time for us to rise up and to go to the polls and to use the polls as a battering rod to get rid of these people who are adverse to our interests, our efforts, our protections, our defenses, and the implementation of our constitutional protections. And if we don't do that, then shame on us.
Shame on us. Regina Forte says she thanks you for the information, Professor Joyner.
Okay, you're welcome.
Okay.
But we need to do it. We need to do it.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that everybody in our household is voting.
That's
and
right.
Then we need to go out and make sure that everybody in our community is voting. Right. And then we need to help them to understand who it is that they should be voting for.
Exactly.
Because voting for the wrong person is just like domestic suicide.
Right.
And we don't need that. We need empowerment. And in order for our people to be empowered, they need to understand what is going on and what is happening to us, because at the end of the line, all of this conduct, whether we're talking about the insurrection whether we're talking about recent decisions by the U.S. Supreme Court, are directed back at us.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now we're about to get on that subject, because this whole show initially was all supposed to be about January 6th, but of course the wind got knocked out of us with the Roe v.Wade decision. And not just the Roe v. Wade decision. Let's just take it back a little bit. Civil rights in general, because now that whole case about New York and the gun laws that they had, and there's some other states that have these really strict gun laws about, carrying guns and all that stuff, not being like the Wild Wild West, like they are out in Texas, that kind of thing. Well, the Supreme Court just did away with it, right? And so it's a mess. When we just tried to we barely got a real meek and mild gun law passed. And then the Supreme Court goes and puts a monkey wrench in that. And then the other big case that I want to talk to you about is the Miranda rights. Yeah. That's the thing that's not talked about large enough. And that directly impacts us more than anything. It deals with that whole conversation we have with our young men and women as they're driving while Black.
Yeah.
And so, Professor Joyner, our issues on civil rights now, we gotta act a little different now, right?
Yeah. Well, you're stacking a lot of things together in a short amount of time, and underscore it all by saying we need to make sure that we vote. But the U.S. Supreme Court has dealt some staggering blows.
Yes.
Because it has, for the first time in history, taken away protections for people. The only time that the Supreme Court has taken away protection. They have narrowed protections in the past, but they've not taken them away. And now they're leaving it up to the states. And the states are now making these decisions about a woman's right to choose, or people's rights to choose, because it's larger than this abortion discussion. It is certainly much larger than that. And it flows from this thing called unenumerated rights that is found in the Constitution, or was developed by prior Supreme Courts to say that the government cannot invade our intimate decisions dealing with our bodies, and whether to have to carry a child to fruition or not is just one of those, but there are many others. And this whole notion of marriage equality, this whole notion of contraception use, all of those things flow from this notion of privacy and the right to keep government out of our bedrooms and out of our houses. And that is a thing that Clarence Thomas is calling for the Supreme Court now to undo. And that also include, as I mentioned before, interracial marriage.
Right. But he'll stop at that one. See, it'll be just for him. That will impact him, so he can't lose his best friend, Jenny.
Well, you never know. You never know. But I'm saying that this decision issued by the court has a lot of implications that's there. When we look at this notion of gun rights, I mean, we have a problem with guns in this country. In fact, there are more guns owned by civilians in the United States than there are people in the United States. For every 100 people in this country, there are 120 guns. And we have more guns than any country in the whole wide world. And this is an armed camp that we are in. And unfortunately, and I know that this is subject to debate, but the horse is already out of the barn.
Yeah.
The horse is already out of the barn when you have almost 400 million guns held by civilians. You have in excess of 850 million guns out in the streets, but 400 million of those by civilians in this country. And every state, most states, North Carolina being one, has a constitutional right for every person to have to own a gun. And if you don't have one, you need to be getting one because you are at risk wherever you are, whether you're in your home or out in the street. And then we have a lot of crazy people out here running around that they use that as the debater of last resort.
Right.
And and they settle arguments or beefs that they have with other people with these guns. But I don't know if we can retract where it is that we are now because of the vast number of guns that's circulating around in our communities.
I'm gonna read this comment here from Alicia Baker Rogers. The executive and legislative branches have term limits. So should the judicial branches. I agree. I guess when the U.S. Constitution was written, the average lifespan wasn't as long as it is now. There needs to be a term limit for members of SCOTUS. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, in the past, there have been efforts to impose term limits for members of Congress, members of state legislatures, and that has failed. We have 2-year terms, 4-year terms, but the term limitation to keep them out of office, that has regularly failed. So what we have to do is to vote today, tomorrow, and every day to make sure that good people are elected and that they are elected again and again and again. Because if we ever stop, if we go to sleep on our rights.
Well, we did go to sleep.
We did.
We went to sleep in 2016, even though Hillary got the majority, she got the majority of the vote. She didn't make it in the Electoral College. And to be frank with you, after we did Bush versus Gore, we should have done away with the Electoral College back then. We really should have in 2000. We should have really made a concerted effort. And another thing, speaking about this Roe v. Wade, what can you explain to us what the being codifying a law means?
I mean, enacting the law, passing the law so that it is the controlling position in the country. So that codifies it as the law of the land, and the Supreme Court and other courts have to apply that law. And that's why I said we need good people, people that are looking out for our interests. And if you can't find anybody who's looking out for your interests, then you need to run yourself so that you can protect your interests and our interests that's out there.
I see. Yeah, because there was a lot of criticism about some women that I've been hearing from saying, well, they should have codified Roe v. Wade years ago. But I think the thought was that they never had heard of a SCOTUS taken away rights. And you can't. And the thing is, what I'm seeing is that these people play the long game, and the Democrats play the short game. We don't think strategically as far into the future as the other people do, and they do it with such precision. It's scary.
This campaign covered 50 years. 50 years they've been working to get this Roe versus Wade overturned, and they finally succeeded in doing so. But we think that once a law is in place, that it is there forever, and that is not the case. It is
we learned that. We learned that. We thought it would be. I just didn't know. Briefly, before we get to Regina's question, this whole Miranda rights situation is kind of convoluted because I was listening to someone else bring it up, and he was saying that the Miranda rights came from an old Ku Klux Klan law of 1871.
Well, this decision had to do with a civil remedy for a person whose Miranda rights had been violated. And
Okay.
they filed this case in civil court to obtain money damages for what the police officer had done. And it was under 42 USC 1983, which is the civil rights statute, federal civil rights statute that is in that you can bring in federal court. And the court basically said that because Miranda isn't a constitutional right, then under 42 USC 1983, that isn't a remedy that the person can use. It doesn't impact the criminal side where you suppress the evidence that has been wrongfully obtained as a result of the Miranda violation, but it goes to the civil side and takes away a remedy that an individual has when their rights have been violated. And the court reaffirms or reiterates this notion that Miranda isn't a constitutional right. It is what is called a prophylactic rule that Congress has created to protect a person who is in custody and is being interrogated by the police. But the 1983 grew out of the effort to find a remedy for violations of a person's right enacted by the Ku Klux Klan in right after the Civil War.
Yeah. Listen, all I know is that this whole situation has me reading up on stuff that, you know, how you might have glossed over way back in the day in American history class and all that stuff. And I'm like, they are just going way back. I mean, who knew of the KKK law of 1871? But it was fascinating reading about it. You know, what our people, what we have been through hell and back, and then back again. Look like, well,
Teddy Pendergrass says, "Wake up, everybody."
That's
And we need to wake up, or else we'll be just like him.
Yeah. Regina says, "How do we balance the courts so that we can hold these justices accountable?" Listen, let me tell you one thing that Trump did, McConnell did. They loaded the courts up with people that were incompetent. They didn't know. They got some people on one of them courts, a lifetime appointment. That girl is only, how old is that woman? Is she barely 30? Just barely into her 30s. I mean, I'm just saying, when you look at Amy Coney Barrett, she doesn't have the judicial chops when you look at her compared to Ketanji, please. Ketanji whips all of them out the bucket, okay? But even with Kavanaugh and the rest of them, she doesn't have the judicial experience like those guys do. They just don't.
Yeah.
You know, so it's kind of
political muscle. Yeah. If you don't have it, it can be used against you.
Yeah, and it
has been.
Yeah.
Right. We're together.
Yeah. Let's see. There's another question. What must we do in order for the Civil Rights Act to become the civil rights law?
Political muscle. Having the right people in Congress to enact it. We need to have a control of the Congress, the House of Representatives, and then 60 members of the Senate, so that there is ability for the Senate to affirm the actions of the House. But it goes back to political action. If you're not in it, you're out of it.
Right. So from what I understand, what I heard is that now that people can no longer sue if they say that their Miranda rights were violated, that the police officer, when they interrogated them or held them for some time, that we can no longer sue. It's not an automatic thing. There's no ability to right that wrong. And
Right.
so this gentleman,
Under 1983, under 42 USC 1983. Now, there might be another provision of law that you can prevail at the state level, but at the federal level, which is 1983, you can't do it.
yeah, this guy was saying just today, he was on yesterday he was on Tiffany Cross, and he was saying that if you get detained, he said you need to ask people, you need to ask the officers, am I detained or may I go?
Yes.
And and he said, don't get smart, just be calm, whatever, it's just crazy. I don't know. It's just like everything is just really out of whack.
We need to educate our people. We need to keep them educated, and we need to reiterate to them what the constitutional protections are, so that they will know. And we talk about being woke. This is the time to help our people to be woke. And you can't be woke if you don't know what the landscape is like, and what is going on around you. So that is one of the things that we need to work on.
Yeah. I know that. I think that I feel bad for President Biden in that he thought, because he had been in the Senate for so long, he thought that he could. I know these guys, they're going to work with me. They're acting up a little bit now, but they know me. I'm Joe, da da da. And I think it really blew his mind. When the SCOTUS came down with this ruling, I really think it took him for a loop.
Yeah.
He was visibly angry.
Whether he was looped or loopy, the onus is on us.
Yeah.
To go out here and fight. We cannot depend on anybody else to protect us but us. And if we are not doing what we are supposed to do, then whatever happens is a reflection on us and not on them. Now, we can make alliances and join with other people who are similarly attacked, but we have to do our part. We have to do the work on our side of the ledger, and to make sure that our ledger is full.
Absolutely. I don't know what else but to do. I read something. Somebody just joined. She says, now that we have everyone's attention, we need to do what Trump did. Trump awakened whites who felt that they were disenfranchised and mobilized them. Excellent point. We have to do the same with the disenfranchised and underserved. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right on point.
Absolutely. That's right. Because if we don't, we're going to be left, we'll be left behind, and we're already behind. And it just seems like we're always fighting, always going up the hill, always struggling. It's just so frustrating to feel like we take 2 steps forward to take so many steps back. And
but we can't rest on our laurels. The people who are on the other side, who want to return us to pre-Civil War days, they are constantly doing what it is that they do to take away the rights that we have. And if we're going to keep them, then we have to stay on our tippy toes every single day. And we can't be dancing our lives away, because if we do, our lives will be gone.
Professor Joyner, did you hear about the Proud Boys showing up at the Wilmington Library?
Yes.
They were doing some little pride event, and they're just showing up. They're showing up and intimidating people.
That was a national-wide effort. The Proud Boys were doing that, and similar type things all over the country, where the gay groups and organizers were engaging in pride type activities because they are a target, as we are.
Yes.
And so we need to coalesce with and around them. But there is a military force out here that is attempting to physically harm them, to keep them in their place in the same manner that we are targets by them and others, in uniform and out of uniform.
Right, right. Absolutely. Let's see. Somebody else had something to say. Voter registration absent voter education is a exercise in futility. Each 2022 high school graduate should have received a diploma in one hand and a voter registration card in the other.
Yep.
That would be an excellent civics project for those types of teachers to take on, be part of their whole like part of their curriculum or their syllabus.
Yeah.
That at the end of learning American history or whatever, then they would get their voting card and stuff. That's an excellent idea, Imani.
Great idea.
Great idea. I like that.
We have to execute on it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, Professor Joyner, it is 9:05. I have enjoyed you so much, as usual. It's always so much to learn and so much to go over, but we will be doing this again. I'm going to do my next show that I do. I'm going to do all on Roe v. Wade, and just another show.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you so very much for the invitation.
Absolutely. One more thing is just, John, that if the powers that be think they are being cute by saying it's all about states' rights, yeah. Okay, no problem. We will meet you at the State House. Well,
Amen.
we're gonna have to.
Amen.
And listen, those of you that are on YouTube, please thumbs up the video and consider subscribing, please. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right. We're gonna say good night. All right.
Good night.
Bye,
See you.
everybody. Good night.
Okay.